listeners about their relationships. This show is not an attempt to assess, diagnose, or treat any mental health or illness condition. Please consult your physician, psychiatrist, or psychotherapist for personal matters.
Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Voice Show. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, a psychotherapist and the author and the originator of the Awareness Integration Theory. Hello to Sean, our director in our studio. This is a show about what matters most in our life, our minds, thoughts, feelings, actions, relationships, and our fulfillment in this beautiful journey of life. Today, I'll share with you the tip of the week about violence at home and hurting everyone. And then we have an amazing, two amazing guests who help you move beyond your automatic thinking into the new you. I'm excited to bring you Gunther Mueller. He's the optimal health strategist. He's a revolutionary magnetic mind method, and that is taking the personal development movement by storm so that his client can learn how to turn thoughts into things and become conscious creators so that they can still live in a life that they absolutely love. Then I will chat with Stefanie Stahl. She's a well-known psychologist in Germany and the author of The Child in You, the breakthrough method for bringing out the you that is authentic. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and podcast and connect with me however you can. But first, here's the tip of the week.
Have you ever wished you could just wake up one day, reach across your nightstand, and hit the life reset button? Let's face it, the struggles and frustrations of everyday life leave millions of women and men around the globe yearning for a new way. And the new way is right here in Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want by Dr. Foojan Zeine. You can get it now at Foojan.com or Amazon.com. Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want. You deserve it.
Here's the tip of the week. This is a time of the year we kind of focus on violence at home. October was the National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we've talked about violence before. I just wanted to share this with you because also this week I've had to talk to some families about this matter. So I figured I'll share it with you. So let's define violence: any act involving physical or verbal force intended to hurt, damage, or kill someone. The strength of emotion and unpleasant or destructive natural force. Domestic violence is any act that is threatening, demeaning, and is an attempt to control, coerce, or hurt an intimate partner or a spouse. Domestic abuse can be physical, can be verbal, emotional, financial, or sexual in nature. Typically, the pattern starts after the honeymoon phase of an intimate relationship where one partner asserts control and power over the other. This pattern then escalates from a tension-building phase to an explosion, proceeding with some type of remorse and calm period. After a while, there is not even any type of remorse or calm period, and it just goes from tension to explosion to tension to explosion. Usually, the controller minimizes the impact of their behavior, and the victim holds lots of pain and shame and minimizes the pain they're getting and they stay. The victim endures usually due to fear of being harmed more, being abandoned, or their families being harmed, or for the sake of their children. At times, relationship becomes an addictive cycle where the victim hopes for the next honeymoon cycle and thinks that if only she or he does what the abuser wants, it will all go back to normal beginning. Unfortunately, when this condition is not addressed or treated, the violence only gets worse, producing traumas, injuries, and possibly death. So become aware and recognize signs of domestic violence. see this within your own self or any friends that you have. Does your partner belittle and embarrass you in front of your friends and family? Does your partner belittle your accomplishments and you kind of feel like nothing around them? Does the partner use threats or intimidation to make you do what you were told when they say it and you've got to do it? Do they get physical, hit, grab, push, pinch, shove, or choke you? They use drugs or alcohol as an excuse for saying hurtful things. They blame you for their behavior. They pressure you sexually and make you feel guilty and ashamed if you don't do what they're asking you to do. Do they say nasty things about your friends and family and tell you not to hang out with them anymore? Do they keep you from leaving the fight to have more control over you? Do they control all aspects of finances and make you beg for money? Do they break things or throw items at you during a fight? If anything that I said was familiar to you, you need support. If you are the person who's behaving this way, please seek to get help to learn how to manage your anger and anxiety that creates the need to be controlling in this way. You might be depressed or have a mental condition that is not treated, or learn behaviors that are not suitable. This behavior will take away the love and intimacy you also need in your relationship. Therapy can support you to deal and release the pent-up anxiety, rage, and depression. You can learn how to manage your need to control the surrounding and trust yourself and trust your mate. You also benefit from skills that support you to manage your anger, release them, and communicate in a healthy way. If you are the recipient of what I shared, get support from therapy or any of the domestic violence centers, which offers counseling groups and even shelter if it's needed. At times, victims fall into a pattern of provoking the anger, even when the partner is not in an explosive space. They might see this space as a safe time to address and talk about what their needs are, their pain, their anger, their hurt for being abused. And this sometimes triggers more cycle of violence for them. After a while, helplessness and hopelessness occurs, and we just don't move. You need to be safe, be healed, and stop the cycle. Therapy can support you to raise your self-esteem, confidence, and courage to take a stand for yourself, set boundaries, and be treated lovingly. An intimate relationship is a space to create love, intimacy, friendship, and partnership, cooperation, and trust. Violence destroys all of it. You deserve to have a loving relationship. For more observational, integrative skills, go to my book, Life Reset, the Awareness Integration Path to Create the Life You Want. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and I am bringing you Gunther Mueller. He is an optimal physical and mental health strategist. Gunther has spent the better part of the last decade working closely with over 300 medical professionals in a variety of specialties, assisting them in bringing life-changing therapies to their patients that help them feel young, healthy, and vibrant again. Don't you all want that? I do. Today, Gunther is extremely excited to be sharing the revolutionary magnetic mind method that is taking the personal development movement by storm so that his clients can learn how to turn thoughts into things and become conscious creators so that they also can live a life that they absolutely love. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here today. Super excited to share this information with you because I think we live in pretty turbulent times, and knowing how to create a life that you love, I think, is essential.
Yes. And I think we all deserve it. Sometimes we think, it's supposed to be given to us, or some people have it and I don't, or what is it that I can't get? And I think the responsibility and feeling accountable and deserving to create it, not deserving to get it, but deserving to create it, is an amazing concept. And I think this is what you are landing with magnetic mind method. So share with us.
Yeah, so, throughout our entire lifetime, we have been taught to solve problems. We're very good at knowing what we don't want and trying to create situations and scenarios to keep what we don't want away or keep things from happening. But the truth in the quantum physical reality is that the more we focus on something, the more it grows. So I'm here to share with your listeners today that we need to step out of the problem-solving reality and step into what I'm going to call the creator stance, meaning reclaiming our power to choose our experience in the current reality. Because when we focus on what we truly want, let's call it a true end result, a true choice, a true desired experience, when we focus on that, and not worry so much about how it's going to come to pass, but more focused on the what we want, that's when the reality in the quantum physical universe that we live in takes care of the details and brings us magnetically the people, the situations, the opportunities, and we tend to call this sometimes coincidence or serendipity and things like that, but it's not, it's actually creation. So learning to become super conscious, learning to connect with that aspect of ourselves that's connected to the infinite is a critical, essential skill in manifesting and actually creating, instead of problem solving, actually creating what we want to experience in life.
There's one aspect I usually say, and I just want to share it with you because I think I'm looking at one aspect and I want you to share with me the rest of it, which is sometimes I say when you're driving down and you are in the mood for fast food and you really are concentrating, I want fast food, that as you're driving, every single restaurant that is fast food are going to pop up because that's what you're looking for. So the fast food restaurants were always there, but that's those are the ones which it's going to pop up in your world. And then, another time you're going for fine food, kind of like 5-star restaurants on the same street. And no longer the fast foods will pop up because your attention is toward finding the other fine food. So this kind of a very simple analogy, is this also what you're sharing, or is it more than beyond the kind of I state and the universe matches me and it's not there, the potentiality, but because I say I want it, then the world brings it, or that it is there, I'm just not looking for it, and the minute I'm so clear that that's what I want, then it shows up for me.
Yeah, so what you're talking about there is the reticular activating system in the brain. Like when you select a certain car you want to buy and you see it everywhere all of a sudden. It's always existed, but it's a filtering system that we only see really what we care about in the moment. What I'm talking about in creation has to do more with our identity structure. And the big idea is, look, you are not broken and there's nothing you need to fix. You already possess everything you need to create the life that you love. You just have never been taught how to direct that focus, how to direct that attention for long enough. One of the problems in our world is we live in a microwave generation. We want instantaneous results, instantaneous gratification. This is one of the problems with the millennial generation. If it doesn't happen right away, they lose interest and they go somewhere else and they go in a different direction. So manifesting and creating, let's say, meaning and fulfillment in life and happiness and satisfaction that is long lasting, this takes a different mindset than, let's say, the fast-paced, instant gratification, social media culture that we live in today. And when I say you're not broken, it means the identity structure that you've created over your life is not, let's say, your fault. It's not that you did something wrong. It's not that you're broken. And we all have self-sabotaging identities that are running in our subconscious, unconscious program. And they sound like this. They sound like, I'm not good enough. I'm not capable. I'm not worthy. I don't deserve that. I don't belong. I'm not perfect enough to have what I desire. So we've crafted this identity structure. So success in any aspect of life is not personal, it is structural. Because when we're from like 0 to 7 years old, we made a lot of decisions about what it's like here. What do I need to do to get love? What do I need to do to get safety or certainty or satisfaction? Or, you know, from the time you came into the world, you had to figure out what I had to do to get food. What do I had to do to get my diaper changed? What do I need to do to get love and affection, right? So we made choices and decisions about how the world was. And depending on the conditions, the influences, our parents, our social, cultural setup, we made choices about the way it is. Now, those choices were good choices with the information that we had in order to survive. But now as an adult, or as coming into more and more of adulthood, those decisions may no longer serve you to have the experience to be able to be this super conscious creator, to have the life that you would actually love. And there's really only 3 buckets that I think people are concerned about. It comes in the area of money, so abundance or financial prosperity, comes in the area of love, intimacy, and relationships, all different kinds of relationships, and it comes in the area of health. So anybody struggling with a health issue would prefer to have optimal health, and that's why I'm an optimal health strategist. Done a lot of work in the hormone space, nutritional optimization and stuff, but it starts here in the mind. We've all heard about the body, mind, spirit connection. This commanding of our focus, being able to shift that identity structure. See, the identity is always congruent with the experience. If you have an identity structure that says you're not good enough, you're going to create a reality that proves you are right. Mm-hmm. Right? So you'll go for things, and then things won't work out, because if the underlying identity structure is one of I'm good enough, or I don't deserve that, or I'm not worthy to experience that, you might move in that direction, but get snapped right back to that original identity. So the real thing that we need to do here is learn how to shift the identity so that we can actually have a different reality experience.
So the super conscious creator is shows up with who I am, and then that who I am then manifests and creates, and the reality out there then matches the who I am that I say I am.
So the who I am, when you answer the question, who am I? The answer that I'd like you to come to at some point, or realization, is that you are a creative being. And because you are a creative being, you have the power to create. Now that's something that we may have forgotten, something we may never have taught, but it is true. Our focus creates the reality experience that we have. Now, after you figure out who you are, then the next question is, what do I want? And when I ask people, so what do you want? You say you want a life that you love. Tell me about it. What's in it? You know, the number one response I get, I don't know. I have to think about that. And I'm like, that is the essential problem. You spend too much time thinking about what you don't want and strategizing how to keep that at bay or away. Because here's it, people I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be broke. I don't want to be homeless. I don't want pain and suffering. I don't want this type of that thing or this type of that thing. But when I ask, what is it that you really want? They fall short of being able to actually describe or explain what it is they would actually love to experience, because we have not been taught to do that.
So part of your work in magnetic mind method is to also tune in into exactly what a person really wants to create.
Yeah, so the first step in the magnetic mind method is to have a true choice. And you know that you're in a true choice. And I'll give you an example for a very directional true choice. I choose to live my true nature and purpose, right? It's a choice, because people are looking for fulfillment and meaning. So we have to choose to actually live a life that is full of true meaning and purpose. Another one would be, I choose to be the predominant creative force in my life. I didn't say you're the only creative force, because we live in a co-created universe, but you can be the predominant creative force in your life. In the health space, I choose optimal health and vitality. It's not a choice about solving my health problem. I'm not focused on the problem. I'm focused on what it is I want. What I want is the experience of optimal health, vibrant vitality. And I'm going to focus on that and bring that into my current moment experience. Or the one that I love the best is just, I choose to create a life that I love. And I focus on, and I help my clients focus on, well, what are the ingredients of that life? And one tool that I use is, tell me about your average perfect week. What are you doing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Tell me the ingredients. If I was going to bake a chocolate cake today, I would need flour, I would need sugar, I would need chocolate, I would need butter, I would need all those things, the ingredients that go into making an amazing chocolate cake. Well, to create an amazing life that you love, you have to be able to tell me, and you have to be able to create a mental picture of what does that life actually look like? Who are you? What are you wearing? Who are you with? What do you spend your time doing? What do you actually love to do? And we have not been taught to choose from a place of love. We've been taught to choose through the process of elimination. We've been taught to choose through consensus, especially in the social media world. You know, we only go in a direction or choose something sometimes when we know that everybody's going to be accepting of our choice, but it's not really a true choice.
And many times responsibility, you know, I got to go to work and I have family and I have to feed my children and I got to, you know,
That's right.
So it comes from, oh, I don't love this, or I'm not choosing this, and I'm just doing this as a chore. So my life becomes a chore versus this is the one I chose, this is the one I picked, and I can love it. Or if these are not the stuff that I'm choosing to do, what is it that I can and move forward with it?
That's a great point. So it's a double-sided coin. Wherever we find ourselves right now in the present moment, and it may be, let's say, a mundane experience or a Groundhog Day or something, you know, we all want something better. So I'm going to ask the listener right now to just say, what if I change the word better to the word different? That whatever experience I'm having right now in my life, I can choose to be content for a moment. I can choose to love the life that I'm living right now, and at the same time, desire something different. So you can be content, and you can choose to be, okay, this is just the way it is now. That's actually step 2 in the magnetic mind method, is creating a structural tension in the brain between the way it is now and the way I'd love it to be. The way it is now and the way I'd love it to be. And the future isn't necessarily going to be better. The future is just going to be a different experience that I choose consciously instead of unconsciously, and instead of just reacting and responding to what is, that I take that creator stance and I actually consciously choose the way I would love it to be. And when you're in a true choice, you know that you're in a true choice, because when I ask you, why do you want what you want? Your honest answer to me would be, I want it just because I want it. I want it just because I would love to experience that. For no other reason. Don't have to tell a story about it. You don't have to rationalize it. You don't have to get anybody's permission to have that experience. I want it just because I want it. Let that sink in for a second, feel that position, and see what that feels like for a second, to be able to actually choose something that you just want because you want it.
There's definitely an excitement that shows up with that, as I was saying, okay, I want it just because I want it. There's this a freedom and excitement that shows. I still think that even when you want what you want, there's a lot of subconscious conversation that happens that brings that into, we're just not self-analyzing this, you know, how it shows up. But obviously there's a lot in the background that when you ask that question and this shows up for you, this is what I want. But I think when you take away all of those ropes that are around it, then for the, you know, there's a joy in the freedom of experiencing here and now for the sake of experiencing versus experiencing because you have to, or you just self-analyze yourself to death about why it should be there.
Yeah, so what you're referring to is the natural resistance that comes up from those self-sabotaging identities that we've crafted over a lifetime. And so that's really goes into the fourth step of the magnetic mind method, is we need to recode that unconscious or subconscious mind. So we've developed a very specific technique to be able to do that in about 15 minutes, to allow the identity to shift from I'm not good enough to I am good enough. I'm not worthy to I am worthy. And when we shift the identity, we can experience a different reality. So the end of a magnetic mind recode kind of feels like a lightning. It feels like an increase in possibility that, yes, I can actually have that experience for myself. And it's not just, let's say, the celebrities that get to experience those things, but it's actually possible for me, because the truth is we live in a quantum physical field of infinite possibility. And if you can imagine it, if you can feel it in your body, and you can really experience something in your imagination, whatever you can imagine, you can create.
So part of that is also the work that you do around opening up this imaginative
Yes.
space, because I work with a lot of people where as you open this up, like you said, the sabotaging, the fears, the elements of no, it's not going to happen. And sometimes a person's vision is just about limitations of what they experience. And there's this fear of opening this up and experiencing, or a non-believing aspect of what's the point of me experiencing, envisioning that? Because it's not going to happen. So there's a lot of the negativity, the fear more than anything that shows up as limiting beliefs, which turns into fear, shows up at that moment. And this is something you also do in the magnetic mind method, to open those perspectives and shifting as you say, if this ideas are coming from a fixed identity, which doesn't have those way of belief systems. Because I think that there's a way of, yes, we read about the quantum physics, we study it, and we have a knowledge of it, but I think that these are so much of a different types of paradigms. When you look at physics, you have this thing coming up and coming down. There's a different conversation when it comes up, with the quantum physics, there's this theories, but the experience of it doesn't come to the actual physical physics, So to bring that concept of the potential, the ultimate infinite potentiality, and to bring it into the concept of everyday living is a far-fetched idea for some people to touch it, to just touch this concept. So right. In your magnetic mind method, how can you land that concept?
So I'm gonna land it by the experience of the actual quantum physicists. What we found out in 2001 is that these little particles that they study, that they only show up when the physicist has the intention to observe it. And think about that for a second. So the quantum physical reality is actually being shaped and formed, and the particle actually shows up when the observer has the intention to observe it. This is the field actually collapsing into the three-dimensional reality, all right? And if that's possible for a physicist when he needs to observe the particle so he can manipulate it, accelerate it, split it, all these different particles that exist, well, we can take that theory and we can apply it to our lives. This is why it's so simple and you're not broken. It's an element of your focus. It's exercising this imagination, because the mind does not know the difference between imagination and reality. And that's why it's always been said that if you can imagine it, you remember when Steve Jobs got up on stage and he said, look, 1,000 songs in your pocket. This is the creation of the iPod. He did not know exactly how that was going to happen, but he knew what he wanted. He knew what he wanted to create. And of course, it took a smart team of engineers and designers and all different types of people to come together on a team, but it was to create what he could imagine. And we can do that same thing in our own life, but we first have to be able to imagine, to be able to articulate a life that we love. What are the ingredients of that life? His vision was 1,000 songs in your pocket, and he created the iPod. What are you going to create in your life That's what I want the listener to contemplate. That if you are a creator, you're an imaginative being, and you learn how to get into that emotion of the end result. What would it feel like in a life that you love? What would you actually create if you could create anything that you want? You need to have an answer to that. You need to be able to see it. And what you referenced earlier was the non-believer, the skeptic, the that resistance that comes up in us. That is our egoic mind. Now, the egoic mind is never going to go away, and you don't want it to, because it's what keeps you safe. It's what feeds you, it's what protects you, it what provides you shelter, it's what takes care of your physical being. And the negative of it, though, is that it wants to maintain the status quo. It wants to manage what it knows how to manage. And every time you try to create something different, you try to create something new, the egoic mind jumps up and says, no, no, no. Remember, we tried something and it didn't work out, and it was a painful experience, so don't go there. We have to take charge of that aspect of our mind.
There's also another piece into this, which I think is very important, where you said, when you want a cake, it has an ingredient that has to be there. So just for audience to know that what you're sharing is not the concept of, because there's a potentiality and I see it, and then it automatically manifests. I mean, yeah, it doesn't automatically manifest. So there's this notion that, sometimes we go into a fantasy versus reality, which you also are saying that, yes, you have to have the vision.
Yes.
There is effort that needs to go. There's skills, there's elements that need to be there. So when Steve Jobs just had a vision, the iPad with that, all of it doesn't just out of ether show up like the particle showed up, because those are the
excellent
that gets very weirded out. Oh, if the physicist saw the particle and it showed up, that means if I say I want to innovate, spaceship that just takes me to Mars immediately now, and I don't have to do anything about it, then if I see it long enough, it shows up and I can go. No, it doesn't happen that way. It's first the vision, then the elements, then the skills, all of that has to happen. So I just wanted you to share with people.
Yes.
Because I remember the conversation with the movie Secret, and it created all of these conversations, which brought a lot of the physics and brought that, but still somehow it created a movement where everybody thought, if I can,
right,
it shows up. Please
that is
that.
Yeah, that is a perfect lead in to step 5 of the 5-step magnetic mind method. It is taking action, and not just action, but obvious aligned action. So when you have a true choice and you can manifest this desire in your imagination, and you can get into it and you can feel it, and we can do a recode to shift that underlying identity that is creating the resistance to actually having what you want, you still have to take aligned action. And an aligned action could be a small baby step. It could be a simple thing. Let's say in the health space, the obvious aligned action may be that you need to drink more water every day. Maybe you're dehydrated. And so the simple, obvious aligned action to choosing optimal vital health would be to hydrate your body properly. Now, taking that aligned action is the first baby step towards the true choice of having optimal health. The second step that's obvious might be that you eat a better quality of food, that you avoid the fast food and choose more better food for you, right? The third obvious action might be that I'm actually going to make an appointment with a physician because I haven't seen one in 5 years, and I'm going to take some obvious action steps to this true choice of having infinite, abundant, vital health. Yes, this is where the secret and the law of attraction sort of dropped the ball, because everybody thought they could manifest a Ferrari in their garage by sitting in lotus position in their couch in their living room and never doing anything.
Yes. Gunther, we got 1 minute. Anything we haven't shared that you really want everybody to know?
I want everybody to know that you already are a super conscious creator. And if you learn how to become connected and train your super conscious to be responsive to your choices and to your desires, you recode away the resistance and you take the next obvious action, I'm here to tell you that you can actually create a life that you love. And most people say, well, how long is that going to take? I'm going to say, look, it's going to happen as soon as possible. It depends on your focus. It depends on your desire. It depends on how serious you are about creating a life that you love. But it is 100% possible for everybody listening right now to choose what they would love to experience.
Gunther Mueller, everyone. Magnetic Mind Method. Please find him as dreamlifemasters.com. Thank you so much, Gunther, for being in our show.
All right. Thank you for having me.
And everyone, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and I have Stefanie Stahl with me. She is a graduate psychologist in Germany, and she's Germany's best-known psychotherapist. In addition to her therapeutic work in her practice, she has written many self-help guides, all of which are bestsellers in German-speaking world. The Child in You Must Find a Home has been consistently at the top of the Spiegel bestseller list since 2016 and has been translated in 26 languages. A popular keynote speaker, she is considered a leading expert on the topic of self-esteem and fear of commitment, and is regularly invited to interview and talk show. And we're so excited to have you with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You have worked on the inner child work. So I usually ask, and I know there was a huge inner child movement for a long time. And I usually ask, how come? How come you got interested in all the aspects of psychology field to the inner child field?
Yes, that is really easy to answer because first of all, I want to mention that my approach to the inner child is completely new. I created a completely different approach to the inner child. And because the inner child and all this movement is not only a little bit an old thing in the US, but also in Germany, but still it's so very important because the inner child only means that that our brains are imprinted by the experiences we make during our upbringing. And this knowledge will be always true. As long as we are human beings, we have a very, very big part within our brain that is totally subjective and completely imprinted by all the experiences we make during our upbringing. And these experiences are so important. They are so important because they are the glasses or the lenses we look through to see the world. And that is a part of our psyche that psychologists call the inner child. And in my approach, I invented the shadow child. The shadow child embodies our negative experience, negative experiences, these experiences that often lead to trouble in our adulthood life. And the sun child, on the other hand, is the part that represents our healthy aspects of our personality. And apart from that, very, very important, it represents everything we can create new nowadays as we are grown up adults. So we can create new beliefs, new attitudes, new behavior, and so on. So the sunchild, in my approach, represents our authentic and healthy self. It's the vision, the vision where we want to go if we want to let go the shadow child within us.
And how do you explain, this is how you, what you explain in your book is the way that the inner child develops. Could you share a little bit about that with us?
Yes, sure. The inner child develops, as I mentioned, by our upbringing, our parents. For example, I'll just create an example. If my parents, for example, are often stressed out, I'm a little child, my parents are stressed because maybe they both have to work and I have 2 siblings. So my parents just can't spend the time with me and meet my needs for attachment and my needs for autonomy and my needs for cuddling and so on, as it would be appropriate for me. I don't think as a little child, oh, mommy and daddy are totally stressed out and maybe they should go to parent counseling or do something about it. But I think and feel as a little child, I'm not enough. I'm not wanted. I'm not worthy, and so on. That's what we call in psychology inner belief systems. And these inner beliefs are, the most of them are built very, very early on in childhood. And the belief system are the way the little child is thinking, oh, that's how the world is functioning. That is my self-esteem. So if mommy and daddy don't treat me appropriately, I learn by this, what we call in psychology, this mirrored self-esteem. My parents mirror, are like a mirror to me, what I'm worth, and if I'm worth being cared for. So I learned in my early years about my self-esteem and how relationships do function. For example, I think I'm not enough, and that is my self-esteem, that represents my self-esteem. And if I want that people like me, or at least don't reject me, I have to be very, very over-adapted to their needs. So I learned from early on to adjust to other people's needs, that I look, what does she want? What does he want? And try to adjust and meet all the needs of other people. That means at the end, I'm over-adjusted. And this over-adjustment is a breeding ground for all and so many psychological problems later on in life. Because what my saying is, and what I try to transport to all my readers, is the following thing. Our psyche is not very complicated. We are built by very, very simple structures, and we only have four basic psychological needs. And if you want to understand yourself, your problems, and if you want to understand other people and their issues, you have to start in thinking in these structures. The problems are not that individual. They seem to be on the surface. But if you analyze the problems a little bit deeper, you always come to the same psychological structures. And I want to make my readers to understand these psychological structures, because if you understand the structure of the problem, it's so much easier to solve and handle it.
Yes, you talk about the need for connection, the need
for example,
for autonomy or security.
Yes.
And sometimes
these are the first need of connection is the first psychological need we have. Then our need for autonomy and control. The next one is our need for self-esteem and to bolster our self-esteem. And the last and the fourth one is that we want to avoid bad feelings like guilt, shame, anxiety, and that we are craving for good feelings.
Yes. And you talked about a couple of different aspects of it, that yes, it could be that, you know, we have genetic component that makes our mood bad. And then when we look at the world from that mood, that we might create some general ideas and generalized beliefs. But then there also our own perception as a child, as a human being, that takes on whatever happens outside the world. And when we set it up as, okay, this is what it means about me, or this is what it means about the world. There's always a question that shows up for me, because I have a model that I work with, the taking what the past is and bringing it and integrating it into the system. One of the things that I've done, refrained from calling it an inner child, and I wanted to ask you this, is that one of the things that has happened with the inner child movement is that it's given the people almost the concept of, as if I open myself up, there are little children actually sitting there. You know, it's like this concept of Santa Claus, that is a concept, and then we put an image into it, and then we start believing the image versus there was a metaphor. There's a metaphor about this versus no, there's actually, states of children who are there, and and they're there, and they don't get integrated. And the concept of naming it an inner child, although it gives it that imagery, and it allows us to look at a couple of things. One is that state was created in a childhood. Two, that state was created in a sense and got kind of disconnected from the rest of you, which is growing up. But that it doesn't have to be disconnected in that way. And somehow what it was showing to me when I was working with people, and their idea is as if that area is always disconnected versus these are all parts of you that need to be connected. Even the basic need of connection also needs to happen internally, which all of these sides are connected versus disconnected. Can you share a little bit, onto that topic?
Yeah, that was a lot of information. Okay, I think
I got too excited with this matter, and I needed to share with you.
No, because English is not my first language. I really have to concentrate that I get it all. So I think in the end, it's not so important how you perceive it. The most important thing is that you understand the idea that everybody has a central theme, and that this central theme is closely linked to our brain imprints. So that you are able to disconnect from, or to stop identifying with these old imprints. If you really believe and never get to know that this is just an arbitrary imprint of your childhood, if you really believe I'm not enough and I have to work that people like me, and many, many millions of people think this, yes, I'm not enough and I have to adjust and work that people like me. You have to be very clear about this imprint, because then in the second step, you can create a little distance and get into the observer position. In the first position of perception, you're totally identified. You think and believe everything what you think, and you believe everything what you feel. But if you catch yourself in that very moment, that is the most important thing. When you're in the moment of your inner shadow child, yes, and you feel hurt and you become angry because you think somebody is criticizing you in a very bad way, and you're channeling your shadow child, and you become little again in your everyday life. In that very moment, you have to catch yourself, to become aware. Oh, be careful. That is not your adult self acting here anymore. You just slipped into the little child mode, and then switch to your adult self. And the adult self is also a psychological term. And the adult self is referring to our clear thinking, to our rational mind. So you switch into the observer position and into your adult self. And from there, you can see yourself from outside, which is the essence of self-reflection, that you can look onto yourself from the outside. And from there, you can see, oh, my little child was triggered, my shadow child was triggered. But it was only my boss who really likes me, and she has a little, she has a little critique, and I think what she says is justified. So please stay adult and act in an adult way towards her, and don't start sulking now and retreat and so on, and just behave in your adult style. And the more you catch yourself and switch during your everyday life, the less often your shadow child shows. And what I just mentioned by, retreating and sulking, in my approach with the inner child, there's not only new that we have a shadow child and sun child, but in the old approach of the inner child, it was only about feelings, the feelings of hurt or anger and so on and so on. But I created an exercise where you can really discover your shadow child. And within this exercise, you discover your own belief systems, you discover your feelings that are linked to your belief systems and to your shadow child. And most importantly, you discover your self-protection strategies. Because in my book, I write about all the self-protection strategies that we use to compensate our shadow child and our feelings of inferiority. For example, a typical self-protection strategy is striving for perfectionism, or striving for harmony, or escape, flight, and withdrawal, or having excessive power motive, that you're striving for power and control, and so on and so on. So, and most of the times, it's not the belief systems or the feelings themselves with which we burden ourselves in our relationships, but our self-protection strategies. Because if I withdraw, sulkingly, and don't, put up my wall and don't, talk to the other person anymore, then it is this behavior with which I really do burden my relationship and myself. Or if I'm striving for perfectionism, as many people do, that is the perfect precondition for burnout.
Yes.
Burnout people are all over adapted and have a high motive for perfectionism. So I'm always overstepping my own borders, my own boundaries, because I'm so over adapted that I don't feel my feelings and my needs anymore so clearly. And I'm so eager to please other people that I neglect my needs, and I neglect them as long as at the end my body breaks down. So these self-protection strategies are very, very important to examine closer. That's what I love to do also with the inner child work. And with the work with the sun child, we replace the self-protection strategies by self-reflection strategies. That means healthy behavior and constructive behavior with which we can unburden our relationships.
Beautiful. I think that there's definitely a lot of great exercises and explanation about how to become aware of your own perceptions and aware of the things that happen within you that have become automatic. And you look at, what belief systems, what emotions shows up, what behaviors even shows up at that moment. And then as you become aware of them, then you can also shift into the more healthy thought process, feeling process, and emotion and behaviors in order for you to be successful in life and move forward. So everyone, The Child in You Must Find a Home. It's a wonderful book that you can get in.
May I interrupt you? They shortened the title to The Child in You.
The Child
Must Find Home is in German. In German, it sounds very nice, but in English, they just say the title is The Child in You.
The Child in You. And Stefanie, we have about 1 minute left. Is there anything we haven't shared that you really want everybody to know?
Yes, I think that this self-reflection is not only very important to come to a happier and easier life, but it's also very, very important to become a nicer person, because all the problems and all the issues and all the damage we have in the world is because of people who are not reflecting themselves. And that leads political leaders to very, very unhealthy and very, very destructive decisions and laws and so on. And that makes people who are able to vote as leaders, if they are not living in a very, if they have the possibility to vote at all, to vote often people who don't pursue the best values. So I think this self-reflection is very, very important, really, to make this place a better world for everybody. So if everybody starts to reflect on himself or herself and gets out this, or at least to understand the shadow child within himself, and the shadow child can be very, very powerful and often turns people to offenders. They feel as if they were victims, but they act in the end like offenders. So everybody of us, everybody, that is right for everybody of us. So it's very, very important that we look at ourselves and be very aware what we are doing and what we are saying, and to be, yes, aware of ourselves.
I love what you just said. And I do think that we're all kind of responsible and accountable to be able to do that for ourselves. And then with that, we could create a better community at large in the whole world. So everyone, if you need to speak with Stefanie Stahl and you need to find her book, please go to www.stefaniestahl.com. And thank you so much for having the time to talk to me from actually Sicily. You're not, we're supposed to talk, and you reside in Germany, but now you have gone to Sicily, right?
Yes, sometimes I love to work somewhere else. I take my work and just live for 2 weeks in Sicily. But we are not only working, we do some, it's like a workation, mixture of work and holiday. Yeah.
Yes, it's beautiful. Well, it was great talking to you. And
thank you.
Everyone, go get the book, The Child in You, and start reflecting with these beautiful exercises that are there. And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.